Statement prior to tonight's tip-off, aware of what was said in the statement and the actions that were taken, and support both. I hope you respect the fact that any questions that you would have about that, I'm going to point you back to the statement, and it's something that I stand by and support. In terms of tonight's game, it's the opening night in college basketball. It's always great to start off with a win. You know, I didn't think our defense was very good for a number of minutes of tonight's game. You know, I thought the last 4 minutes of the first half, we became disjointed, disconnected. That can happen. You know, no matter how experienced you are at this time of year, there's so many things that teams need to work out, and there were a number of things that we need to get better at moving forward. But it is opening game, and it is early November, and we have quite a few. Not only tonight, quite a few new faces, but our depth was very limited. I mean, we were down about as bad as you can be, considering that, you know, out of the 17 players that we have, I think 7 of them weren't able to play in tonight's game because of, you know, Chase Jeter, for example, is not allowed because he has to sit out. But 7 of 17, even at the end, that's why Duson was in. We didn't have anybody else to put in. So the good news is, as of Sunday, I believe we'll get 3 of those guys back. Brandon Randolph will learn more, but I think there's a chance he could play. Keanu Pinder will be back, and Dylan Smith will have the opportunity to play. So we welcome that depth, and those guys are important to our team. And I think it'll help solve some of the things that we went through tonight, because I don't care who you are, you go out there for long periods of time and you don't get a sub, it's hard to maintain the intensity that we really want to have. And I'm sure that was part of the problem here tonight.
Sean, are you able to say how much advance notice you had that you were going to be without Keanu tonight?
No, I'm not.
And the one thing that didn't say on there was it related to those two, between with Keanu and what Coach Phelps did?
I'm going to stand by that statement, and I'm going to move on to any basketball question that you would like to ask. I'll ask myself one. Alonzo Trier, thought he had a great night tonight. I mean, the guy on the opening night of college basketball, he went for 32. He went 10 for 13 from the field, 2 for 2 from 3, 10 for 11 from the foul line, and was very efficient. You know, Alonzo has put in as much work on the game of basketball as any player that we've had. And he's fought through his own adversity. I think it's helped him. It's allowed him to grow up. He's more mature. He's the best teammate he's ever been. But he's certainly, from an offensive perspective, he takes a back seat to nobody who's playing his game. If you leave him open, he's going to make the shot, and he's an incredible free throw shooter, and he's always had a gift of being able to get there. I just feel like he does it in a more efficient way now than ever before. But he set the tone, and when our defense was not very good tonight, especially in the first half, you know, the reason that we had the lead that we did was because of how prolific he was on offense.
How did you think DeAndre did for his first game?
He did well. You know, we had a problem tonight guarding ball screens, and you know, it's up to our coaching staff to help our players, and especially our young guys, understand it. If for whatever reason he wasn't stopping the ball like he usually does, and you know, sometimes we almost overcoach our guys to not foul. You know, you have Duson and DeAndre in there, especially DeAndre. You talk about, you know, positioning, and you forget, like, sometimes just blocking a shot and letting him go. That's the best defense you can have. So we talked a little bit more at halftime about that, and he was more passive in the first half, but he was way more aggressive in the second half defensively, and that allowed us to get out in transition, and a couple of his shots that he blocked, and using all of his athleticism, because he can move on defense and he can block shots. It was almost like he was told not to do it in the first half. So again, that's all part of this is game 1, and he'll be better the second go round. But he also had a big night. I mean, 19 and 12, 3 blocks, 30 minutes, 6 for 11 from the field. He was this close to really having a big night, and but this is something that he can learn from as well.
You went small with PJC, Trier, and Alex. Do you think that's going to happen a lot, or is this one of these nights because you had so few people?
Yeah, I mean, you think we only had 4 perimeter players who could play in the game, and you know, that's why we had Alonzo in there late in the first half with 2 fouls, and he picked up his 3rd foul. Again, things that, you know, you trust a guy like him, he has to be really smart, at the end of the half, when you have 2 fouls, you don't ever want a player like him to commit his third right before the half, especially when he has the ball. But that's why we did that. But we're gonna have more perimeter players available next game. You know, Dylan Smith, in a very quiet way, has progressed. No one talks about him because he's not a part of this year's recruiting class. And you know, he wasn't a highly touted guy, but as you guys know from the past, a lot of the transfers that we've had that have practiced for a full year and have already played college basketball, they can hit the ground running. And I believe that he'll add some much needed depth for us. And you know, you've already seen Brandon. I'm cautious in what I'm going to say about Brandon because he's missed 7 or 8 days in a row, 8 or 9 days, and he's had a concussion. So how much he'll play, hopefully he'll be available. And but he's almost symptom-free if he isn't symptom-free right now. But it'd be nice to get those guys back for sure.
Has Brandon done contact in practice? Or
No.
So do you have to go through practice and then do that tomorrow before you get there?
I think he's cleared to practice full contact tomorrow. We won't do a lot, but
So if that goes well, maybe he plays Sunday.
that's right. And if he can play, you know, we have to be careful both in terms of how ready he is and also what's best for our team. But he'll work his way back. Unfortunately, you know, for him, he's had a great preseason, and you know, you get hit with that injury, it can set you back a couple weeks. But I have great confidence that once he's 100% healthy and is able to start practicing again, you know, he'll be somebody that we really count on.
With this obviously talented freshman group that you have, how important is it to have guys like Trier and Rustic Usage to kind of lead the way and to have some veterans out there and not just all kids?
Well, that's really what we miss from Raleigh. You know, part of why our team's ranked as high as it is and is well thought of maybe before we start playing is we do have a blend of experienced players returning. Very few teams have a senior point guard like Parker. I mean, Parker had 8 assists and no turnovers tonight. He was terrific. You know, like you said, Duson, who had almost like a quiet 20 and 10 tonight, but he's a senior. Alonzo in his 3rd year, and then Raleigh in his 2nd year, but somebody who started a lot of games. So that experience, no doubt, that's a big, big part of what we're counting on. It helps as these younger players. You saw with Emmanuel Acott tonight. He was very tentative in the first half. Not sure why, but you forget this was his first college game. And sometimes you just got to get out there a couple times before you feel comfortable. In the second half, Emmanuel was much more assertive, and I thought much more like himself. But while he was going through that, it's nice to have a couple veterans that you can count on.
How much more are you asking Parker to take the ball to the hole? I mean, obviously it didn't necessarily work out for him point-wise tonight, but it seemed like he was making a concerted effort to drive the basketball.
We do. I mean, that takes care of itself. What we really want him to do is shoot open threes. Because sometimes he's so unselfish and he's such a pass-first player that he actually doesn't allow himself to make his teammates better because he passes up the open look. And then when the defense doesn't have to account for him, it doesn't matter how talented he is passing the ball, some of his passing skills are diminished. And I say that because in the last 2 years, he might be the best three-point shooter in the Pac-12. So he has to always take those threes that present it. And when he does that, plus the passing and the playmaking, that's when we really have something special. But I have more confidence in Parker than I've ever had before. A lot like some of the recent players that we've had who become seniors, he's ready to have a really good season. I just have my fingers crossed that he can be healthy. Again, injuries in the past have hurt him somewhat. And if he's healthy, he's going to have a big, big year, and he's off to a great start. Forget points. He dominated the game by making his teammates better. 8 assists, no turnovers. Every coach in the country would love to have a point guard who did that.
Is this the Trier you were expecting to see a year or two back?
Yep.
He can control the pace, he can hit shots from the perimeter,
Yeah.
can almost control the game without having to do it.
I mean, he was 10 for 13 from the floor and 10 for 11 from the line. I mean, it's not easy to do that, and but he has great ability, and he has great range on his shot, great accuracy on his shot, and he is an amazing free throw shooter. So it's difficult to deal with him, especially when we play team basketball, and you have inside, outside transition where he can get those shots in the flow of the game. And it's up to us to make sure that he stays within the flow, because when he does, he's a preseason first-team All-American, right? And that's who he was tonight.
Just to piggyback off that, Sean, he was aggressive, but he didn't force much. When you can get your offense pretty much anytime you want, how is the fine line there between, not forcing too much and yet being aggressive?
That's it, knowing when to go, when not to, moving the ball. And I think some of it for us, and a lot of teams think this way, is, the first side, that's when the ball first comes up the court. You might be able to get something on the first side, but it's probably because the defense you're playing against isn't very good, or they're really undermanned. As you play against good coaches, talented teams, they have other players, depth, you're not going to get those shots on the first side. You're going to have to get it on the second, third, inside, out, moving it, one more. And we have enough talent, especially offensively, that if we share the ball and move it, good things will happen. And it's up to us to promote that. I love the fact that we had 21 assists tonight. I think in some of the other games that we've played, our exhibition games, we've had high assists as well. And hopefully we can keep that going. You
went 28 for 32 from the line. Is that the kind of team you're going to have this year?
This is the best free throw shooting team we've had. We're going to have our nights, I'm sure, where they don't make them, but I'm around our guys every night. We were an excellent free throw shooting team last year. It's a big reason we had such a great season. We were in a lot of close games in November and December because we were going through injuries and different things. And a lot of those games were won at the foul line. This year's team, we can both get to the line, but we have the ability to really make them. DeAndre Ayton from the line is like a point guard shooting free throws. He's really, really good.
Is that from the head coach's talent, the free throw shooting?
No. No.
28 turnover-free minutes for Alex Barcelo. Is that something you were expecting?
Alex quietly has been as consistent as any player on our team. He has not missed a day of practice. He's not missed a day in the preseason. He works his butt off. He doesn't say anything. Sometimes we want him to talk more. He is tough. Reminds me a lot of T.J. McConnell when he first got here. Really tough. And he's a great shooter, which is awesome for us because coming off the bench, you want guards that can make threes, and he can make them. And he can play two positions. He doesn't just have to play the one, but I'm really impressed with him. He handles his business. He's a pleasure to have in the program. And like you had mentioned, quietly, you don't talk a lot about him because his numbers don't jump out, but he's been efficient, tough-minded, and he's only going to get better. I almost feel like every week that he's been here, he's made a small jump, and he'll continue to do that.
Is this a team that could shoot close to 60% or more on a regular basis?
I don't know. I think if we could shoot close to 50, that would be great. That's one of the best in the country. But we have a lot of weapons on offense. We can't ever let that become to the detriment of our defense, though. Tonight we had too many miscues. We picked and chose, especially in the first half, how hard we were going to play. We were irresponsible. We didn't make it tough around the rim. Some of that might have been the lack of depth we had. And obviously credit NAU for doing a good job. But in the second half, our defense was much better.
What was it like?
The numbers show that.
What was it like for you to see Talbot Denny get some minutes after everything he's gone through the past 2 years?
Talbot's a great kid. He's a Tucson native. Everybody who knows him and his family knows he's a wonderful kid, amazing student, adds a lot of value. Nobody feels worse than him that he couldn't have played last year. We could have used him at times last year, but he does a great job every day. And that's why you rely on everybody in college basketball, because on a night like tonight when we had a lot of hardship the other way, we needed those that could perform to be ready.
What you had Dylan, it seemed like it was a pretty definite 3 games. How has it been through that process? And I don't know if you ever considered it going longer, or has he been doing all the right things? I guess that's what I'm wondering. How's that been?
No, Dylan's really turned the corner. He's had a really good summer. He's worked hard. Academically, he's really in a good place. Off the court right now, I don't think he's ever been better. And you can see that in practice. His practice habits are excellent. And he's one of our team's best passers, which says a lot because, putting another guy out there who can see the court. At UNC Asheville, he made a number of threes, so he can do that as well. But we want depth. Every coach wants depth. We want competition. and hopefully getting some of these guys back on Sunday will help us. I know UMBC is a really, really good team. They won 21 games last year. I don't know if they beat SMU tonight, but I know it's a tough game at SMU from what I heard, and SMU obviously is very good, so we know it's going to be a tough test, and like we've done this year, I'm hoping that we can learn from tonight and progress.
You had a relationship with Odom's dad a little bit, didn't you? I don't know if you ever worked with him or friendship or anything.
Yeah, no, I know the Odom family. His dad, great coach at Wake Forest in South Carolina.
So you
actually recruited me. He was an assistant at Virginia a billion years ago when I was coming out, and he was one of the recruiters at Virginia. And most importantly, he was a big factor in the 5-star basketball camp. So if you went to the 5-star basketball camp, Dave Odom kind of ran the camp. He ran the camp day, so known him since I've been probably 8 years old. My dad played college basketball against him. But in some way, you kind of know everybody in college basketball if you wait long enough.
Are you allowed to talk about signings?
No, I'm glad you brought it up. Either after the game on Sunday or on our press conference early next week, I'll address that, and I'll be able to talk about that.
Well, you have one commit tweeted that he signed, so I didn't know, can you acknowledge it? Did you get it? I mean,
I can't speak on that because I was busy with other things and with the game, but the next time that we get together or the press conference early this week, I'll address that.